So, welcome. I'm here with my friends, Brenda and Vallerie, and a little special guest, Louis. We're going to be talking a little bit about their move to Uruguay and what that was like. So, do you want to introduce yourselves?
Yeah, hi, I'm Brenda. This is my wife, Vallerie. We are both from the United States. I'm originally from California. I'm originally from Utah, and we moved to Uruguay about 10 months ago. So, a little bit of time now.
Okay, so first, a little background, like, when did you decide it was time to move?
Yeah.
And how did you decide on Uruguay?
Yeah. We've been talking for a few years broadly about the idea of moving out of the United States and abroad in general. We had heard about Uruguay in conversations with some other friends in a lot of queer circles. It comes up a lot actually as being like a very pro-gay, very friendly, peaceful country. So I had known about Uruguay in the back of my head.
Yeah, I remember in 2019, 2020, we were thinking of moving abroad just for fun, but then the pandemic happened, so we didn't. But Uruguay was on our short list of places to check out, so you've been on our radar for a while.
And then, as time goes on in the United States, the situation unfortunately getting more and more difficult there in ways that we've been predicting. And then, last year things kind of lined up in a way where I think I had just left a job and Val's job had gone remote. The presidential election happened. And it seemed like a good time to at least give it a shot. So we decided to move here, and if it worked out, great. And if not, then we'd go move back in with my parents and figure it out.
And speaking of that, like, what did your family or friends say when you told them you were moving?
My family didn't care at all. My parents really liked to travel, so to them, they were just like, oh, cool, if I was young, I would live abroad. So, I didn't have any, deep conversations about it.
Yeah, we only lived in a different state than most of our friends and family. And, obviously the flight is longer to get to Uruguay than California, but it's still a flight to visit most of my family. So, they were excited, a little nervous about, not knowing anything about the country, but mostly it wasn't the biggest deal to my friends and family.
I did have a few, not concerned, but people a lot of Americans who don't super know a lot about a lot of countries, especially Uruguay. I definitely, I know someone in my family was concerned that I wouldn't have access to the internet while I was here. There were definitely some concerns, people just not understanding geography, but not any concern, or no one was against it.
Yeah, no one was like, you won't be safe there, you shouldn't do it.
Yeah.
They all knew we liked to travel and were generally supportive of that.
Yeah.
What do you think Uruguay was going to be like before you arrived, and what surprised you once you were here?
That's a good question.
Yeah, I didn't have a ton of preconceptions. We kind of just, we knew that it was relatively easy to move here. We knew it was a Spanish-speaking country, and that it was, a secure and good laws, basically.
Yeah.
That's all we knew coming. I think I had some general ideas based on having visited a couple other Latin American countries, but nothing concrete.
Yeah, I think what was most not surprising, obviously we picked Uruguay partially because it seemed very opposite to a lot of the things we didn't like about the United States. But I didn't realize how quickly I would just feel so much better being here. Definitely living in the U.S. is very stressful all the time. Kind of no matter what your situation is, you are stressed out. And then coming here when life just moves a little bit slower, people are just more patient, everything just kind of feels lower stakes in a way that you can go about your day and not just be in a panic all the time.
Yeah.
So I think I didn't really I knew big picture, like more stable government, excited to practice my Spanish, but a lot of those just a little everyday thing where you're just not feeling all this pressure and stress and rush from a million different places every single day. I didn't really realize what not having that was going to feel like.
Yeah, like even with the stress of an international move, we were both immediately less stressed out overall.
Yeah.
Yeah, and when you've lived like that your entire life, it's hard to imagine what that's gonna be like.
Yeah.
So it kind of does take you by surprise. Like, I didn't know I could feel this way.
Yeah. And it's a million interactions where I'll get to like the counter of something. I'll be doing some kind of paperwork at the bank, something that is normally kind of a stressful or more bureaucratic process. And they'll ask if I have a certain thing. And if I don't have it, or if I've forgotten it, or if I can't find it right away, they will see me kind of start to panic, be like, "Oh, let me see, but like maybe I can call someone or I can figure this out." And they'll just say, "You're okay." Like, they'll start like breathing, trying to get me to breathe. They're like, "Everything's fine. Like you don't know
going to die."
And like the people behind me in line aren't annoyed that it's gonna take me like an extra 5 seconds to find something. The people helping me aren't annoyed that I'd like need to ask a follow-up question or I'm missing one thing that I might need to go get later. Like, just in a million little tiny ways throughout the day, I'm just realizing that I don't need to panic all the time.
Yeah, and like I started learning Spanish when I got here. I had done some Duolingo, but I couldn't speak at all when I got here. And even with that, like I'm learning, and people are very patient with me as I'm, I have my sentences and lo siento, like perdiendo señor. And everyone's very patient and kind as I get through those interactions.
Yeah, and that's actually one of my questions because I know you already knew Spanish, but you started learning when you moved here.
Yeah.
So what's that like when you first got here? Like getting around whenever you had to go on your own with Brenda?
Yeah, the first month was very overwhelming. It was right. We were doing all of our moving things, and also I didn't have the language. And I do wish I had started faster. I didn't have
Before coming.
maybe before coming, or even when I got here. My first month, I was kind of overwhelmed by everything, so I didn't put as much time into it as I could have. But honestly, like as soon as I started, even just listening to people and trying to understand, it's really, I don't know. Like, the more time you can spend with the language, the better it is. It's my biggest advice. Just, it's not always fun, but the time makes it worth it.
Yeah, and how was the difference from learning, like, Mexican Spanish to then getting here, Rio Platense Spanish?
Yeah, it was very different. That was definitely a blind spot. I did not realize how different the Spanish here was. I guess I hadn't looked up anyone specifically speaking the type of Spanish, but because I learned Spanish in California, which is very, very Mexican influenced. And then we traveled to Mexico and I communicated fine. We traveled to Guatemala, I communicated fine. We went to Barcelona for a honeymoon, I communicated fine. We got here and for like probably the first month, maybe nearly 2 months, the accent was very, very difficult for me. It sounds so Italian. Now that I've adjusted to it, it's so beautiful and I like it so much. But at first, I was wondering if people were actually speaking Italian. A lot of the food words are so different. So I think at first it felt more overwhelming than it ended up being. Because a lot of your first interactions are like, okay, we're going to go to a restaurant because we just moved in. There's no food in the house. Like, or I just want to try some of the local food. So a lot of the early interactions are going to a restaurant, not quite understanding the accent, and then looking at the menu and not recognizing half the words.
Yeah.
But so I would say food is the biggest vocabulary difference. Everything else more or less shares the same vocabulary, but at first I thought it was going to be harder than it was.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I would say the adjustment from more like Mexican, California Spanish to Uruguayan Spanish, it took a few weeks, and then once it clicked, it hasn't been a problem ever again. But yeah, Valerie's done really great from learning from scratch. She, I think we agree that on the number one piece of advice is just to listen to as much Spanish as possible. That's been probably 90% of her progress is starting with like very slow beginner stuff. Maybe it's Bluey for preschoolers.
That
Maybe
was the first show I watched.
Yeah.
And it was so helpful, especially because, right, it's a kid's show.
Yeah.
So even if you don't understand the words, you know what's happening because it's targeted for children.
Yeah, and it's meant to teach you.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And then just with time, you simply will learn. 90% of how she's learned Spanish is just watching. And she studies a lot. She's been very dedicated. She does 1 to 3 hours a day. So she's learned very quickly. But even if you don't have that much time, just if you watch stuff that you can more or less get the gist of as you're watching it, slowly you will get more and more advanced. And you simply will learn the language.
Yeah.
You just will.
Yeah, I would recommend starting with simple things because if you start with things that are too hard, like if I had just gone out in the street and tried to talk to people, that would have I wouldn't have been able to learn. It's the starting with the basics and there's a lot of great and things available online to find, and that like starting where you can understand mostly, not starting with something too advanced is really important.
And how was your job situation coming here? Like, did you have a remote job? Did you have a job lined up already? But what's that like?
Yeah, I had a remote contract job. It was part-time, so I was also looking to do some English teaching here. But, we had some amount of safety net with my remote job.
Yeah, I had just left my U.S. job, so I was unemployed. So then I had a lot more time to like deal with the logistics of the move. But right before we came, I already had some teaching experience of other subjects. I had done substitute teaching and coaching speech and debate at a bunch of different levels. So we got TEFL certified right before we came, so that at least that would be one more thing. So in addition to applying to things in what was my field before, I ended up being very lucky and I found an English teaching job like 2 weeks after we got here. So that job has been really helpful in our immigration. It gets me above the Uruguayan minimum wage for immigration. It got me on the free socialized healthcare, which I've never had before in my life. Going to the doctor and not paying anything is so exciting. Yeah, so that job's been really fantastic. But yeah, so I definitely found a job while I was here.
Right, and you mentioned you're just like making above the minimum wage, which is completely different to what the minimum wage is in the U.S. How have you found like that difference? Like, is it like a big difference from how you used to live, or are things being like, because it's not a cheap country. It's one of the, if not the most expensive country in South America.
Yeah.
But there's the trade-off of like having some socialized healthcare, having all these different things. So how have you found that sort of trade-off of having a lower salary but having all this sort of safety nets?
I would say it is a lot less stressful of a situation. I know I meet a lot of people here who talk about how expensive it is, and that is true. It's not a cheap country. We came from California, so basically the whole world is cheaper than California. But yeah, I would say it's different in what is expensive. So if I wanted to go shopping, or if I wanted to buy a new video game, a lot of those things, any physical object that has to be imported, is significantly more expensive here than I would be able to get it in the US. But those big, like, keystone foundational things of being able to live without panic are significantly cheaper. So rent is a lot lower than in most of the places that we would have felt kind of safer living in the United States. The free healthcare, the healthcare in the US, it's hundreds of dollars a month at least, plus paying more for any time that you deign to use it. So, I mean, it can very quickly spiral into the tens or hundreds of thousands if something actually happened. And yeah, what else?
Yeah, utilities as well.
Utilities are a bit cheaper depending on what they are. But yeah, between rent being lower and a lot of those social safety nets where, like, even the months where we've had nearly $0 in the bank account during this move, the fact that I could still go to the doctor if something happened is a relief that, like, I can't even explain. There was 1 month when we lived in the US where we didn't have health insurance for 1 month between, like, the last job's health insurance ending and the new plan starting. And for that entire month, we did not leave our apartment. We were like, it is too dangerous to risk getting into a car and having a car accident. It is too dangerous to go outside and maybe get sick. We sit on this couch for a month and do everything possible to make sure we don't need a doctor for any reason. Versus here, the months where we've been, very low on funds just from the upfront costs of everything. I mean, just knowing I'm not going to die is really nice. I would say it's worth the more expensive shoes and not being able to buy a Switch 2 for the fact that I feel that I can go to the doctor.
Yeah, or even like we're able to do optional things at the doctor, right? Like things that I don't need done.
Preemptive care.
Yeah. I got
Just in
like a
case.
full panel of tests, and it cost me $40. That was the first time I paid money at the doctor.
Yeah, because it was optional. And if you optionally want to do tests in the U.S., it's hundreds to thousands of dollars. Like, you just don't get to do that.
You just don't do optional care in the United States.
Yeah.
And how has your experience been with like going to the doctor?
Easy. Easy.
Yeah, it's been a little more difficult for me just with the language barrier.
Yeah.
But, I pregame before I go. And one time I went in, I had my whole list of questions, and then I said, sorry, I'm still learning Spanish. And it's like, what's your native language? And I said English. And he said, oh, do you want to just speak English?
Yeah.
So, and then, some doctors have spoken English, some that don't speak any English. I went to the dentist and we used Google Translate for a couple of things, but, there's been a couple of times that everyone's been very accommodating about it, right? They want me to have a positive experience, and I do too. So,
And I'll try to go with her if we can make my work schedule work. But I've also noticed that, like, in kind of immigrant community group chats, if someone doesn't speak Spanish and they don't have a family member who speaks Spanish and they're nervous, I oftentimes see people reaching out to the kind of the broader immigrant community of, is there anyone who can come with me to this doctor's appointment to, like, make sure it's just for moral support, for language support, and there's usually someone who's willing to go. So,
I've gone to the emergency room with a few people.
Yeah. So, like, there's definitely, like, people are very kind, both the Uruguayans and, like, the other immigrants that are here. There's usually someone who is willing to help someone who needs it.
Yeah. And how have you found quality of care compared to the U.S.?
Just the same.
Yeah.
I have not had any complaints or any problems.
yeah, and we're just on the basic free loan.
Yeah.
Because we pay taxes because of our jobs, and so we're not on any of the, like, higher paid plans. It's just the basic.
And it's, the same or better than all of the super expensive plans I've been on in the U.S. The quality of the technology and the care is just the same.
Yeah, and it's like, I think I've found it's faster to get a primary care visit than most places. For specialists, you do have to wait a couple of months, but that's what we were used to in the United States anyways.
Yeah.
Oh, there was one thing it's fine, it's not a big deal, but I found this, like, lump under my skin that I was, like, concerned about. In the U.S., it would be months to get seen from the primary care, then you get your referrals, months to see the next specialist, hundreds of dollars for each appointment. And here, as soon as I was like, I found something that I'm, like, concerned about, they got me in for an emergency appointment, like, the next day, and then they, like, took the scans and then got me in for another urgent appointment the next day for, like, the next set of the scans. Like, I think within a week, and it would have been shorter if my work schedule had been more flexible that week, but I think within a week, I had been to every type of, like, test and panel needed to confirm that it was totally fine. So, like, had it been a problem, I would have been able to get it addressed significantly faster than I could have in the U.S. The waits for lower priority stuff can be a little long, but that was true in the U.S. too.
Yeah, it also depends on if you're in the public healthcare system. Obviously, it's a little bit longer than if you're in a Montevideo. It's a lot faster. I know I've heard people have these concerns of, well, if it's cheaper, then that means it's worse.
No, it's been better than all the healthcare I've had in the U.S. Like the quality, the U.S. like we have high quality care if you can get it, if you can pay for it. And here I'm basically not paying anything. I'm getting what feels to be the same standard of care for all the basic stuff, and then a much more expedited, like, we will see you as fast as possible, all for free, if it sounds like there's anything that could be time sensitive or dangerous. So like I can wait a few more weeks for my eye checkup, you know, like it's
Yeah.
truly not a big deal.
I know you're coming from a very progressive state. It's not the same as if you were living in a red state before, but have you noticed a difference in just living here as a queer couple?
Yeah, I would say it's very just like not a big deal here. It's pretty not noticeable, especially we live in Montevideo, or we live in the city. So I definitely feel like no one has ever cared, no one ever looks twice. I haven't ever felt in danger. And in my job, I work in a lot of more rural towns here, and I have not noticed any problems either. I can openly reference my wife in a rural public school and no one cares, which is like not a thing you can do in the United States. But yeah, I mean, even in a blue state, we're still affected by federal laws. You still see, so even though California, we have enough blue voters that we swing blue in the elections, it's still a very populated state. There's still more conservatives who live in California than in any other state. Like, so you can just be driving down the road and see hateful bumper stickers, see like giant billboards on the side of the road saying you don't deserve rights. During election seasons, you'll see ads that are attacking queer rights as well as everyone else's rights. But here I haven't heard or seen anything. I haven't ever heard a politician make any mention of doing anything. Yeah, how do you feel?
Yeah, no, I'd say about the same. Like, yeah, especially comparing, like, I do have friends who do live in red states, and, you know, comparing to them, like, one of them was applying for, to work in a school, and she has a, you know, female presenting partner, and she was very concerned about, you know, will I be able to work here? What can I say? What can I not say? And comparing that with Brenda's experience working in a school here, even in very rural places, is just night and day.
Yeah. And even in the blue states, like whether or not gay people deserve rights is like a political debate. It's constantly everywhere, versus here, like I have just heard no one cares because it doesn't affect them, as we've been saying the whole time. People just have anything else to do but to worry about it. So like I don't have to see all these hateful messages and just like reassure myself that I live in a state that's has enough blue voters that I won't lose my rights immediately. But like here you're just not even, you're not seeing anyone care. It's not a political debate that I've seen. It's not really a question that comes up.
Yeah, normally butts and eyes. Like,
Yeah, that's just like, okay, cool.
yeah.
Yeah, I think the most we've ever experienced.
Yeah. One time I mentioned my wife to someone at the feria, and because I was learning Spanish, obviously.
Like the second
and so
here.
he was like, "Esposo" or "Esposa," and I said "Esposa," and that was it.
Yeah, he was just
making
confirming.
sure, because
So, like, did you mean to say
Yeah.
esposa or did you mean
Yeah.
esposa? And then as soon as she was like, no, like I didn't mess up. And she's like, okay, great. Yeah, continue. Yeah.
Just making sure you got all the pronouns right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I would say the only negative, I put this in such heavy air quotes because it's great, but I'm also not used to it, is that in the US, and really anywhere where there's oppression, where people have to band together, you form like all these communities. And so you have like so many different gay bars, you have so many different queer organizations, you also have a lot of like queer styles and queer flagging so that you can like find each other and see each other, and like you build this community out of necessity that's really wonderful. And I mean, it's horrible that we have to do it, but like these communities are really, really valuable, and like I've always had them to some extent. And then you come here and homophobia is so not a problem that like no one has really bothered to have to do that. I think there's like a gay bar,
Yeah.
but like walking down the street, it's like I'm not used to, now and then I'll see someone again who has like maybe a hairstyle. Like I would have someone who I'm like, okay, I think that they're also gay, but there's definitely not that same need for a queer community in the same way. You'll find it a lot in the immigrant groups. A lot of other queer people who've moved here because of homophobia will still have those like core queer communities. But I've noticed that for a lot of Uruguayans, it seems like it's not a big enough problem to have ever really needed that. So we can't have it as
The
easy.
question I get a lot from clients is, which are the like queer neighborhoods?
Yeah.
Like
Yeah, like any
the whole city.
no one cares enough. Yeah, it's like asking like it's just not enough of a problem for us to have created those communities here, which is obviously a good thing, but there are times where I'm like, oh, I'm like, where is the gay neighborhood? Where can I go to only be around the gay people? Yeah.
To be fair, I think I have one straight.
Yeah, we find each other anyway, but it's not like all around in that same way. You're not going to see a bunch of people flagging. You're not going to have several different queer bars. You're not going to have the queer neighborhood, because you just can live in any neighborhood and not have a problem. You can go to any bar and not have a problem.
Yeah.
So we haven't, apparently the Uruguayans haven't had to carve those spaces out, so they don't exist in the same way.
Wait, I'm bad at math. So, are you here like September?
Yes.
Or-
September 2025.
Okay. Yeah. Did you see the like Hada
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, we went to the march.
Technically, we went to dinner and missed the march.
We thought it would start late, like everything else in Uruguay, and then it didn't start late.
Yeah.
But we were there for the beginning of the laundry.
Yeah, we were there for the beginning before they marched, and then we went to the party after.
Yeah, but we followed the route. But no, we were there for a lot of it. We went to a lot of different like pride things. Yeah, we were at the like beginning of the march where there was the whole party square talking with people, and then they marched towards the Capitol building, which was all lit up in rainbow colors, and there was a whole drag show like on the front lawn of the Capitol building filled with like thousands of people that were all celebrating. It was also a lot less corporate. US Pride obviously started as a protest, and I still love a lot of things about Pride, but if you go to like the Pride parade, because it's not really a march in the US, they're parades, it's like 5,000 floats of different banks and different like corporations.
A lot of the times it'll also be the firefighters and the police.
Please stick it afloat.
But and then you walk around like the Pride area, and it's like 5,000 booths that are like a local realtor with like rainbow pens, like advertising. It's just like, it can be very, very corporate. Versus here, it was purely like just, and it's not just queer people. It's a march for like all kinds of diversity. So it's just people being together and like celebrating and maintaining the rights that they've had here.
Like all of the booths were food and
food.
a couple sticker booths.
Yeah, food's a couple local artists.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, this is just like people coming together. And so, yeah, I liked it a lot, even if it was like a smaller scale than like San Francisco Pride. It was it was very nice to be at. It was very fun.
Yeah. What was the hardest thing to get used to once you were already here? Sidewalks?
I tripped multiple times a day. I would say that's my biggest con. The sidewalks are very uneven. I trip a lot. I trip a lot.
Yeah.
I tripped like twice on the way here. But I mean, it's a pretty small complaint comparatively.
We have rights with the sidewalks.
Yeah, I would say maybe we march for sidewalk support there.
I had one. Where did it go? Yeah, so I think the thing that took getting used to was it's the capital city, but it is still relatively small compared to a lot of places they've lived. And like there's so many, like once you have your friends and community, it's very easy to find things to do. But if you don't have that, it can be hard to entertain yourself, right? Once you have that community and you know people, I feel like we have a very rich social life now, but we've been here, we know people. But in those first months, it was a little bit like what do we do? How can we entertain ourselves? So it's just a different type of city.
Yeah, because also a lot of the different events that there are not like wildly.
No, you just have to know about it.
You have to know someone who knows that it's happening. Well,
Yeah.
even with the Pride March, I saw signs that a Pride March was happening, but none of them said what time or where, because it's like a small enough city that everyone just kind of, all the Uruguayans seem to just know everything. And so why would they write down where it starts? Everyone just knows where it's going to start. And I'm just like, but whatever. Yeah, maybe another, again, it's like anything that's been hard to get used to is not usually a big deal. Maybe there's less food diversity, there's less choice in types of food. Obviously in the United States we have so many immigrants from everywhere, so you can eat food from any country you want whenever you feel like,
Especially living in California.
yeah, especially in California, but really at any city in the US you can get food from literally any country in the world. It's not any more expensive than any other option, and it's all delicious, and it's so much easier to like import all the stuff you might need to like make very, very good versions of every country's food. In Uruguay, it's mostly Uruguayan food, which makes sense. And Venezuelan. The Venezuelan immigrants are really keeping me afloat. We eat a lot of Venezuelan food. But yeah, I very much like that. I think that's probably the biggest con for me on a day-to-day basis. The only thing that I kind of think about is like I really want Thai food and it's just not here. Like I really want the type of Indian food that I'm so used to getting and it's just not here.
You have to go all the way to Buenos Aires.
You have to go to Buenos Aires. So, but 2.5 hour boat ride away, you can find it, but here, not so much.
Yeah. Yeah, I have found myself cooking a lot more since I moved here.
Better.
Both because of wanting to have those kind of more Asian dishes or, those
Stuff we can't get in restaurants.
Yeah, stuff we can't get in restaurants. And also, I feel like I have the time to do it. I have like the time and the brain space to actually think about what I want to eat.
That's cheaper and healthier. We love the ferias. It's so much nicer than just like normal grocery store shopping. But yeah, it feels more sustainable to do more things for yourself. In the US, we have to there's a lot more consumerism. You have to buy a lot more. There's a lot more convenience because you are just so stressed and working so many hours for not enough to cover the cost of living that there's just pretty much no other option than to just buy a million cheap solutions to problems every few seconds. Versus here, it's like, okay, I can't just go buy a super cheap solution in the next 10 minutes, but I do have the time and resources to fix it in a better way.
Yeah. I know mostly Uruguayans, we don't tend to go out to eat as much. Going out to eat is like once or twice a week or even a month sometimes when you're going to meet friends or you just get together with someone. And even then, a lot of the times you'll just make some sandwiches and go to the nearest park and sit down there. So yeah, we're used to just cooking at home, just making very simple dishes, but just doing it ourselves. Which I feel like is not the case in the US.
No.
A lot of my American friends have been like, oh, you feel like this person they cook, and it's like this big thing.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, what are they? Chef.
Yeah.
And then they're making fideos con tuco.
Yeah.
And that's wow.
Yeah.
And I'm like, that's your basic meal that everyone makes, but that's just not the case in the US.
Yeah. I mean, in the US, you're working so many hours. The wages are higher, but so are all the very important costs of living. You have to have a car. If anything happens to it, you lose your job. So you have to pour all your money into it. Your healthcare, your rent being high. So we're always so stressed out, so burned out, working so many hours. And then groceries are so expensive and also often low quality. It's comparably very expensive to buy fresh, healthy types of food from a grocery store in the US, depending on where you live. Especially my mom grew up in a food desert, and she grew up with basically in a part of California where you just really couldn't get fresh food for her childhood. So you could only get canned fruits. You really couldn't get the real thing. So that's pretty common, and it can be so expensive and so stressful and such a time sink that it becomes kind of impossible for a lot of people to cook regularly. It's cheaper and faster, again, to just apply the daily Band-Aid of just having to go and grab something from a restaurant.
Yeah.
But we do have really good restaurants. So,
Yeah. I know the first 2 weeks I was there, my tummy was not happy with me.
yeah.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
was like throwing up every other day. It was awful. I felt so bad.
Yeah, we definitely both just feel generally healthier living here, even if we haven't changed, like, if we're eating what is still technically the same dishes, like, the ingredients just seem to be higher quality and healthier. Food has less preservatives in it, like, you know, just stuff. Yeah, we had to adjust to that. We would buy kind of in bulk the way we would in the US, and then all the food would go bad like 3 days later. And be
Yeah.
like, oh, okay, we're gonna buy food for the next 2 days, and that's it.
Yeah, I remember when I was at my friend's house in Missouri, there was this just pack of bread
Yeah,
that I just kept looking at it every day, and I didn't trust it. I mean, like 3 weeks, and it was perfect.
yeah, it lasts forever.
It was like not moldy at all.
Yeah.
Like, it was perfect, and I was
Yeah.
like, I don't trust this.
Yeah,
I do not trust this bread because bread here goes bad in like 3 days.
yeah, like, you have to buy stuff that you're immediately planning to eat
Yeah.
here. We definitely wasted a lot of groceries our first month as we figured that out. 'Cause we go to the store once every a week at most in the US, maybe 2 weeks. You get a bunch of stuff that's gonna last you for a while. But then here, yeah, it's stuff is just, I don't know, so less. I don't know. I don't know what they're doing in the US, but yeah, it's like, okay, this is just like, it's just a normal piece of fruit that's going to last the normal amount of time that a piece of fruit lasts off of its tree. Okay, cool.
Yeah, that's why you need to go to the weekly fit, yes.
Yeah,
And just buy what you're gonna have that week, not anymore than
Yeah.
that, because it will go bad.
yeah. And the people at the venues are so friendly. They're also very happy to practice Spanish with you. Yeah, it's nice to just like be outside. Sometimes there's like music. Like going to the grocery store is like overwhelming and stressful in the U.S. I hate it. And then here, I'm just like, okay, I could go for a walk, be out in the sunshine, say hi to the guy who sells us eggs, who we're friends with. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's generally a nicer experience.
And then what was the process like finding some place to live long term?
I would say that's the hardest process.
We started with Airbnbs because we wanted to check out different neighborhoods so we could pick someone we liked. So we were in Airbnbs a little longer than we wanted to be, but we lived in 3 or 4 different neighborhoods.
Which I do recommend. I mean, just to get here, they're very common to find. They're more expensive than normal rent, but just cheaper in California. But so you can just like get settled, kind of get used to the country, make sure that you like it if you're planning to move here. I definitely recommend. I don't know what we would have done without you in terms of actually securing a normal like full year lease apartment. That process is very different than it works in the US. There was kind of no part of it that worked the way I was expecting it to. So between both the language, my Spanish is pretty good, but it's not like I'm regularly practicing like lease terminology and like apartment hunting. So between the language barrier and every part of the process not at all matching how it would work in the US, that part can be pretty difficult to do without a Uruguayan who can help you. So yeah, we definitely called you for help a lot. I would say that's how we got through it.
Yeah, just a lot of like the guarantee was the strangest thing for us. So
Yeah.
instead of like paying just like a 1 or 2 month deposit like you do normally in the United States, having a
6 month to 1 year deposits.
Yeah.
Yeah, rental insurance working differently, especially as foreigners. A lot of things work differently. Banking hours are a lot shorter. Banks for the summer are open for 4 hours a day. So if you need to do something with the bank, you have very limited windows to do it.
Yeah.
Just a lot of things working very, very differently and being kind of extra hard because you're a foreigner. And a little bit you run into a problem again where it's kind of hard for people to know that you're not going to know these things. Like, obviously, like Uruguay, everyone who grew up in Uruguay understands how the apartment rental thing works. And I'm sure they also equally wouldn't understand how it works in the US off the bat. But I think it doesn't occur to them that we don't know what they're talking about. Like, that they'll kind of offhandedly mention something and not be able to kind of preemptively understand that we're not going to catch that that was really significant, or that there's something that we needed to do that I wouldn't have ever thought to do without it being very explicitly laid out. But for them, it's just normal. Why would you need to over explain it? So I definitely recommend getting help with the apartment process. Now that we're in our apartment, it's fantastic and easy, but figuring out how it all works the first time was, I think, the most overwhelming part.
Yeah.
You kind of touched on this earlier, but when did Montevideo stop feeling like temporary? When did it feel like, okay, this is my life now, this is my home?
Then
I feel like around the time I started going to the Vallerie regularly, actually.
Yeah.
So a couple, it was our second Airbnb. It was still winter, so just a couple of months in. But like going to Vallerie, I was like, oh, I live here. You know?
Yeah, I think I came, and we always had the intention of staying. Like we came blind. We hadn't been to Uruguay before, but we came with the intention of hopefully staying. It was more like we were planning to go, and unless everything goes wrong, then we'll come back. Versus I think some people come to like, let me check it out and see if I want. We came with every intention of staying unless something like catastrophic or we for some reason hated it. But we definitely came in more with the mindset that we were planning to stay. But yeah, I think I definitely agree that kind of the second Airbnb we'd been here for like a month and a half at that point. That one was more comfortable, so I think that helped too. We were starting to make our friends, starting to get more of a routine. I had gotten my job. I think I was like in the first couple weeks of my job and like starting to feel like, okay, I like have something. We have the ability to be here. So yeah, I think for us, maybe a month or two after we got here, everything was feeling like it was settling into place. Once we got our actual permanent apartment and we didn't have to move from Airbnb to Airbnb anymore, like, I think that has been a lot less stressful, and I felt a lot more settled and like, okay, this apartment is my home. But I think we felt pretty good on like, we live in Montevideo now pretty quickly.
Nice. And what is something that you would like tell someone who's coming up here that maybe they didn't expect to need to know?
probably.
Some advice? Entirely.
I think a lot of people are scared to do it. They're scared to make the jump. And I think there's not been a moment where I've regretted coming. There's not ever been a moment where the difficulties of the move have felt worse or more difficult than what it was like to still be back in the US, even in a blue state, even in like a pretty privileged position. Like just the mental weight. I would say that if you've been thinking for a long time about leaving, if you've been thinking about it, that it's worth kind of taking the shot and doing it, I would recommend starting to learn Spanish now. I think that's the main thing, because everything can be helped. People will help you. People will help you. It's a very friendly country. It's a really welcoming country. It's, as far as immigration processes go, it's a very kind of low stress, open arms. They want you to be here, immigration process. So while there is bureaucracy, there's never been a time where I felt like I wasn't wanted here. Like there was something that's going to be so difficult or so painful, it wasn't going to be worth being here. But yeah, I think that if you get a head start on learning the language, it definitely makes things easier. Again, like we said, just getting started with just like watching even preschool shows in Spanish, watching a show that you've watched before so you already know what's going on. Just a lot of those things that you can start no matter where you are right now, I think will make it so you don't really have that language culture shock. Because I think that's probably the hardest part if you're coming here without Spanish. We were lucky that I already spoke it. But yeah, I think a head start on that.
Yeah, I think related to the immigration process is like there's never going like so far there's not going to be a catastrophic moment where you're going to get kicked out of the country. That just isn't quite right. Like obviously, like I think like finding a job here can be difficult. It's easier if you're looking for English teaching jobs, which is what we do. If we lucked out on that being we're native English speakers, so they want us. But like obviously like finding a job can be difficult, but in the immigration process, there's not going to be a moment where they're like, you have to leave now.
Yeah.
So-
If there's ever any problem, if you're missing something with your paperwork, if there's some kind of error, if there's any issue, the consequence is just annoyance and more bureaucracy. Like, the worst thing that's going to happen during the immigration process is that you're going to have to make another appointment, spend another couple hours on it. It might be annoying, but it's never going to like uproot your life or ruin anything for you. You're just going to have to come back again, and you might be annoyed that day. And that's like the worst consequence we've heard of anyone experiencing throughout the immigration process here. So I think, especially if you're in the US and you're used to anything to do with immigration being really horrible and traumatic and antagonistic and difficult and expensive, that is not the case here. That you don't. I think that's every time we go to an immigration appointment, there's still the part of me that feels anxious and I'm like, how is this gonna go? Or anytime I'm worried that I might have filled out a form wrong, I'm very anxious that I'm gonna like destroy our whole process. And even when there's been a problem, the solution has just been a few more hours of my time and a headache. Yeah, it's manageable.
Yeah, I will say also with like things, like Brenda was saying earlier, it is more expensive to get like luxury items. And if you have things that you are shipping from the United States here, it is very expensive to ship things. But when you travel, but also we know people who, when they traveled here, they did like shipping containers and shipped everything. And you don't need to do that. We came with 2 suitcases each, and that was it.
And that's been okay.
And it's been okay. Like, bring the most important emotional things for you, or like, your luxury items, your video games, things like that. But, you don't need to bring your whole set of furniture. There's furniture here. People, there's dishes here.
There is.
Yeah.
If you have size 10 women's feet or larger, bring your own shoes. That's my advice. You can get them in Buenos Aires. Montevideo, not so much.
Yeah, even size 9, I have a hard time finding shoes.
Yeah.
Because they only have like a few pairs in that size, so when they're gone, they're gone.
Yeah. The people are smaller here. The people are shorter here. So yeah, I'm 5'10", or what, like 180, as you would say. I don't know. And so my shoe size has been, I think, probably the biggest problem, because anything else that is hard to find, I can usually live without. So finding shoes was the only thing I wish I'd brought more of.
Yeah. And speaking of the immigration process, how has been like the appointments like? What has that been like?
Really, getting appointments, again, it can be kind of slow, which at first stressed me out because I thought we were going to like run out of time and get kicked out of the country, but that's not the consequence. Is just that it's slow. So once you're kind of psychologically not panicking about it anymore and you let that go, you show up to your appointment. They're usually maybe 20 minutes long each. You hand in a couple papers, you leave.
Yeah.
And make your next appointment for like 3 months later. Appointment by appointment's been pretty low stress. They tend not to speak English, so definitely, I would say having someone who speaks Spanish and who understands the types of questions they're going to need, or who can tell you what forms you're going to need to bring. Having someone to help has definitely been useful. I think it's a process that theoretically can be done by yourself. But it has been very much worth it to us to have help. But
Yeah. I think there's like 1 or 2 appointments maybe where they don't let a translator in with you. But when that happens, it's a very easy one where you can just write all the information down and take it in yourself. So like,
yeah,
it's, the worst thing that has happened to me is because I have foreign income, I had to get notarized proof of my income. And it wasn't done correctly, so I had to redo it. But I didn't even have to go back to the office. The notary gave the paper to them, and then my residency was a few weeks slow. Like, that was the worst thing that happened.
yeah. So it's very low stress. The appointments can be hard and slow to get. It's also not always clear what exactly you need to bring. Like, again, this is another thing where I think people just kind of think that you're gonna know things, stuff like people's websites are not as clearly laid out with every single exact possible piece of information you might need.
Yeah.
But the appointments themselves are pretty low stress and pretty quick. And when there is a problem, when something does go wrong, you just get another one.
Yeah, I know, like, most of my clients, they're super stressed about the appointment itself.
Yeah.
They're super scared of, like, what are they going to ask me? It's like just filling out paperwork.
Yeah, I have been asked basic, what is your name, what is your address, very basic level biographical information. I have handed them the pieces of paper I was told to bring, and then I've signed something now and then, and that's been pretty much the bulk of any appointment. So the appointments themselves are super, super easy. Knowing what to bring sometimes can be confusing, but once you're there, people are nice and efficient. They're short appointments with very basic questions.
Anything else you want to add? Anything else kind of say? Hello?
It's great. We're happy here. Come. We're trying to convince so many of our friends to come out.
Yeah.
It's a really friendly country. Everyone we've met who's an immigrant from somewhere else has been happy here. It's possible. It's doable. Whatever doubts and fear are making you feel like it's impossible, like it's definitely doable. It's so very possible. And I just feel so much better since we've got here. So
Yeah, it's just, like we've been here for 10 months and it already feels like a home, and we don't have plans to leave anytime soon, if ever. So
yeah, no, super welcoming country, super easy immigration process as far as immigration processes go. 1 million people waiting to help you, and you get to learn a really cool dialect of Spanish.
Yeah. That sounds Italian.
People sound Italian.
Well, thank you so much for doing this. And yeah, if you have any questions about the whole immigration situation or any questions at all about Uruguay, let me know and I'll make a video on it.
Yeah, thanks for having us. Rose fantastic. We highly recommend her.
100%.
Yeah.
This is not scripted.